What happens when a person like Laurie Johnson, so full of joy, faith, wisdom, and welcoming love, passes so swiftly from this life to the next? Well, suddenly there are holes in the fabric of the universe, holes in the fabric of our hearts, holes that can only begin to be remembered, begin to be mended as we remember Laurie and trust that even now, all that she was in this earthly life is now rejoicing with Jesus, who made her all that she was, and now is delighting in her face to face forevermore. I can't actually remember how long I've known Laurie, but I know it's been well over 20 years. Wonderful years in which we've shared many Park Street Church activities together. So there are lots of memories, like our long-running Faith Journey Women's Bible Study, which she faithfully attended between her 2 stints at LCA. She always did her homework. After all, she was a dedicated teacher. Always had something helpful to share. And our long-running honeymooners and engaged couples classes, which she co-founded, where she creatively taught on such topics as communication and love languages, but even more importantly, where she transparently shared stories from her own married life, wise stories, funny stories, truthful stories, comforting stories. If your own wedding had had some natural disasters, who wouldn't have been comforted by Laurie and Paul's recounting of their imploding reception tent right in the middle of a severe thunderstorm? If you were navigating the tricky waters of communication with your new spouse, who wouldn't have been encouraged to keep at it by her admission that it took her a while to learn that she mustn't be offended when Paul couldn't read her mind? She just had to learn to speak in her outside-the-head voice. Many years together at Park Street Church's family camp, where she and Paul instituted what came to be known as the Johnson Cafe, where you got the best coffee. You always got the best coffee at any Johnson-hosted event, and the sunniest welcome to give you a great start to your camping day. Our long-running couples retreat, the only thing dedicated teacher Laurie ever took a personal day for. She and Paul always went up early on Fridays. I don't think they missed a single retreat. And they led a small group almost every year and could always be counted on to find the best places to eat. Oh, those ever so fun Saturday nights a bunch of us had together. They were surely a taste of coming days' bread. And the Johnson New Year's Day parties, flinging open their doors to friends old and new, to friends of their friends, and probably a few strangers who heard the laughter and smelled that Brunswick stew. There was no better way to start the new year. And the Park Street Women's Book Club. I saved that for last, because none of us can imagine what the book club will be like without her knowledgeable, enthusiastic leadership, not to mention her administrative gifts. Yet we are determined to continue in her honor. You know, you heard my grandson saying, "Nani, Nani." He came to that book club. My daughter brought him because her husband works long hours as a lawyer as he begins his career. So we have 3 generations of the May family who love Laurie Johnson. Laurie was the baby whisperer. She would hold Gus when he was fussing, and she could always calm him right down. Laurie introduced me to so many books I never would have read without her encouragement. I'm very wary of too much sad in books. "Don't worry, Chris," she'd say. "It has a redemptive ending." If you knew Lori, you knew she loved books, read them to her kids, read them to her students, read them all cozy in their light-filled family room, read them with Paul by the campfire or in the hammock during their many camping trips, to which, by the way, as Chris told us, they invited so many Park Streeters over the years. It was really another version of Park Street's family camp, and a bit cheaper, too. Better food, also. So many memories, so many things to miss about Lori. We will miss her servant heart, her smile and her strong hugs, her wisdom, her creativity, her knowledge, and oh, we will miss her love. A love evidenced by her wide open welcome and her compassion, especially for the poor and downtrodden, for those treated unjustly. She was a living example of this quotation from her favorite novel, To Kill a Mockingbird by Harper Lee. In chapter 3, Atticus says to his daughter Scout, "You never really understand a person until you consider things from his point of view, until you climb in his skin and walk around in it." Lori was not overwhelmed by other people's troubles. She didn't want to run away. She climbed right in by loving and listening and serving. We grieve Lori's passing now, and there's a sense in which we always will. But grief will never have the final word for the Christian. I close with a quotation from another very favorite novel of Lori's, Hannah Coulter, by Wendell Berry, who is a Christian. As countrywoman Hannah reflects on her long life, which included the deaths of 2 beloved husbands and other sorrows, she muses, "Love held us. Kindness held us. I began to know my story then. Like everybody's, it was going to be the story of living in the absence of the dead. What is the thread that holds it all together? Grief, I thought for a while. And grief is there, sure enough, just about all the way through. But grief is not a force and has no power to hold. Love is what carries you. Love is what holds, for it is always there, even in the dark, or most in the dark, shining out at times like gold stitches in a piece of embroidery. Sometimes, too, I could see that love is a great room with a lot of doors, which we are invited to knock and come in. Though it contains all the world, the sun, the moon, and stars, it is so small as to be also in our hearts. And it is in the hearts of those who choose to come in. Sometimes the room fills to the brim with sorrow, but that only signifies the joy that has been there and the love. It is entirely a gift. We remember our beloved Lori. What a gift, and we are grateful.